Krishna Kesava, Krishna Kesava, Krishna Kesava Pari Mam. Krishna Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Krishna Krishna Pari Mam. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna. Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jaya Radha Radha Kanta Radha Radha Kanta Radhe. 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 Jaya Goranita, Jaya Goranita, Goranita, Jaya Goranita, Goranita, Jaya Goranita, Goranita, Jaya Goranita. Jaya Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada. Gurudev, Gurudeva, Gurudev, Jaya Jaya Gurudev, Jaya Jaya Gurudev, Gurudev, Jaya Jaya Gurudev. Oh, Premanandi,
Hari Hari Bol.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
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 Nayanam Namaskritya,
Nayanam Namaskritya,
Naram Chaiva Narottamam,
Naram Chaiva Narottamam,
Devim Saraswatim Vyasam,
Devim Saraswatim Vyasam,
Tato Jayam Mudiraye,
Tato Jayam Mudiraye.
Before reciting Srimad Bhagavatam, which is of our means of conquest, we first offer respectful obeisances unto the personality of Godhead, Lord Narayana. Unto Narayana Rishi, the supermost human being, Mother Saraswati, the goddess of learning, and Srila Vyasadevi, author. By regular attendance in classes on the Bhagavatam, by rendering service to the pure devotee, all that is troublesome within the heart becomes destroyed by practicing healed, and thus loving service unto the glorious Lord, who is praised with transcendental hymns, becomes established as an irrevocable fact. Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 2, Chapter 4, the process of creation. Is it text 18 or 17?
17, Prabhu.
Maya quoted you 17 yesterday.
What did you do, Prabhu?
I think I did 15.
You did 15.
I mean, it was when I looked on the before this morning it said 17 today, but I somehow ever thought that meant Mayapur yesterday. Didn't somebody just put a verse on the board?
Yes, she wrote 17.
Yeah.
No, I did 15. Does 15 say about Jai Kirtan, Jai Swarna?
15 does say Yat Kirtan.
Yeah, Yat Kirtan. That's the one I did.
Okay, so when I put it 16, and I studied for 18, so this is the second week in a row this has happened to me.
72.
We'll do 17 now. Hey, Tapashvino,
Tapasvino,
Dana,
Dana,
Para, Yasashvino,
Yasasvino,
Tapashvino, Dana, Para, Yasashvino,
Tapasvino, Dana, Para, Yasasvino,
Manashvino,
Manasvino, Mantra,
Vidaha, Sumangalaha, Manashvino, Mantra, Vida, Sumangalaha,
Manasvino, Mantra, Vida, Sumangalaha,
Sheman,
Na,
Vindanti, Vina, Yas, Arpanam, Shemam na Vindanti, Vina, Yarpanam,
Shemam Vandanti Vinayakanam, Tasmai,
Subhadra, Shwaveshe, Namo Namaha, Tasmai Subhadra Sodase, Namo Namaha,
Tasmai Subhadra Sarase Namo Namaha,
Tapasvino Dana Parai Yasashvino,
Tapasvino Dana Paraya Sasvino,
Manashvino Mantra Vidasumangalaha,
Manasvino Mantra Vidasumangalaha,
Shemam Navindanti Vinayarapanam,
Shemam Vandanti Vinayarapanam,
Tasmai Subhadra Sabase Namo Namaha,
Tasmai Subhadra Sabase Namo Namaha,
Asvino Dana Paraya Sasvino,
Tasmai Dana Parasvano,
Manasvino Mantra Vidasumangalaha,
Manasvino Mantra Vidasumangalaha,
Shemam Navindanti Vinayarapanam,
Shemam Vandanti Vinayarapanam,
Tasmai Subhadra Sabase Namo Namaha,
Tasmai Subhadra Sabase Namo Namaha,
Asvino Dana Paraya Sasvino,
Tasmasvino Dana Paraya Sasvino,
Manasvino Mantra Vidasumangalaha,
Manasvino Mantra Vidasumangalaha,
Shemam Navindanti Vinayarapanam,
Shemam Vandanti Vinayarapanam,
Tasmai Subhadra Sabase Namo Namaha,
Tasmai Subhadra Sabase Namo Namaha,
Tapasvino Dana Paraya Shavino,
Tapasvino Dana Paraya Sasvino,
Manasvino Mantra Vidasamangalaha,
Manasvino Mantra Vidasumangalaha,
Sheman Nivandanti Vinayarapanam,
Sheman Navindanti Vinayarapanam,
Tasmai Subhadra Savase Namo Namaha,
Tasmai Subhadra Savase Namo Namaha, Tapasvino Dana Paraya Sasvino,
Tapasvino Dana Paraya Sasvino,
Manasvino Mantra Vidasumangalaha,
Manasvino Mantra Vidasamangalaha,
Shemam Navindanti Vinayadarpanam,
Shemam Vidanti Vinaya Rappanam.
Tasmai Subhadra Sravase Namo Namaha.
Tasmai Subhadra Sravase Namo Namaha.
Tapasvino Dana Paraya Shasvino.
Tapasvino Dana Paraya Shasvino.
Manasvino Mantra Vidasu Mangala.
Manasvino Mantra Vidasa Mangala.
Shemam Navindanti Vinayadarpanam.
Shemam Navindanti Vinayadarpanam.
Tasmai Subhadra Shavase Namo Namah.
Tasmai Subhadra Shavase Namo Namah. Tapasvino Dana Paraya Shasvino. Manasvino Mantra Vidasa Mangala. Shemam Navindanti Vinayadarpanam. Tasmai Subhadra Shavase Namo Namaha.
Tapasvinaha. The great learned sages.
The great learned sages.
Dana Paraha. The great performer of charity.
The great performer of charity.
Yasasvinaha.
Yasasvinaha.
The great worker of distinction.
The great worker of distinction.
Manasvinaha.
Manasvinaha.
The great philosophers or mystics.
The great philosophers or mystics.
Mantravidaha.
Mantravidaha.
The great chanter of the Vedic hymns.
The great chanter of the Vedic hymns.
Sumangalaha. Strict followers of Vedic principles.
Strict followers of Vedic principles.
Shemam. Fruitful result.
Fruitful result.
Na. Never. Vindanti. Attain. Vina. Without. Yaropanam. Dedication. Tasmai. Unto him. Subhadra. Auspicious. Sarvase. Hearing about him. Namaha. My obeisances. Namaha. Again and again. Translation, please repeat. Let me offer my respectful obeisances
Let me offer my respectful obeisances
unto the all-auspicious Lord Sri Krishna.
unto the all-auspicious Lord Sri Krishna
Again and again.
again and again.
Because the great learned sages,
Because the great learned sages,
the great performers of charity,
the great performers of charity,
the great workers of distinction,
the great workers of distinction,
the great philosophers and mystics,
the great philosophers and mystics,
the great chanters of the Vedic hymn,
and the great chanters of the Vedic hymns,
and the great followers of Vedic principles
and the great followers of Vedic principles
cannot achieve any fruit of result
cannot achieve any fruit of result
without dedication
without
of such great quality
of such great quality
to the service of the Lord.
to the service of the Lord.
Srila Prabhupada's divine purport.
Jai
Jai
Shri
Prabhupada.
Advancement of learning, a charitable disposition, political, social, or religious leadership of human society, philosophical speculation, the practice of the yoga system, expertise in the Vedic rituals, and all similar high qualities in man serve one in the attainment of perfection only when they are employed in the service of the Lord. Without such dovetailing, all such qualities become sources of trouble for people in general. Everything can be utilized either for one's own sense gratification or in the service of one other than oneself. There are two kinds of self-interest, also, namely personal selfishness and extended selfishness. But there is no qualitative difference between personal and extended selfishness. Theft for personal interest or for family interest is of the same quality, namely criminal. A thief pleading not guilty because of committing theft, not for personal interest, but for the interest of society or country, has never been excused by the established law of any country. People in general have no knowledge that the self-interest of a living being attains perfection only when such an interest coincides with the interest of the Lord. For example, what is the interest of maintaining body and soul together? One earns money for maintenance of the body, personal or social. But unless there is God consciousness, unless the body is being properly maintained to realize one's relation with God, all good effort to maintain body and soul together are similar to the attempts of the animals to maintain body and soul together. The purpose of maintaining the human body is different from that of the animals. Similarly, advancement of learning, economic development, philosophical research, study in the Vedic literature, or even the execution of pious activities like charity, opening hospitals, and the distribution of food grains should be done in relation with the Lord. The aim of all such acts and endeavors must be the pleasure of the Lord and not the satisfaction of any other identity, individual or collective. Samsidira Haritoshanam. In the Bhagavad Gita, chapter 9, verse 27, the same principle is confirmed, where it is said that whatever we may give in charity, and whatever we may observe in austerity, must be given over to the Lord, or be done on His account only. The expert leaders of a godless human civilization cannot bring about a fruitful result in all their different attempts at educational advancement or economic development unless they are God conscious. And to become God conscious, one has to hear about the all-auspicious Lord. He is described in literature like the Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam. Thus ends the Bhaktivedanta purport to the 17th sloka of the 4th chapter, the process of creation of the 2nd canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam. Srila Prabhupada ki
Jai.
I offer my respectful obeisances unto the Lotus feet of His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami, Srila Prabhupada, who is opening up our eyes, although they have been shut by the darkness of ignorance. When will Srila Rupa Goswami Prabhupada, who has established within the material world the mission to fulfill the desire of Lord Chaitanya, give us shelter under his lotus feet. Srila Prabhupada ki. Thank you. One moment, please. This is just the body that usually calm.
Did someone put extra sugar in the charnita?
Very tasty.
Huh?
But very tasty.
It's too sweet. It's too sweet.
So, again, the Bhagavatam is exerting and establishing the importance of dedicating ourselves to devotional service, bhakti yoga, the divine service of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Purushottam. The Supreme Being, the Supreme Person, the all in all, Sarvakarma, cause of all causes, the absolute truth, the Supreme Personality of God. We're all meant to be serving them. In the material condition of life, we're covered by this veil of Maya, this darkness, whereby we're completely ignorant of that. And as Srila Prabhupada was pointing out in the purport, we have this selfishness to simply satisfy our own ambitions or to satisfy the ambitions of family or society, some organization, some country, some planet or universe. And somehow or other we are forgetful of our relationship with the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Bhagavan Shri Krishna. And we, in this ignorance, we naturally just completely ignore that duty. We may not have any the faintest idea of it, or perhaps we may have some knowledge of devotion to God, the Ishwar, the controller, but that may simply not be prevalent in one's selfish life. When people start to give up this selfishness and devote themselves to the service of God, then that is the beginning of spiritual life, of real spiritual life. Then gradually one will come to understand Krishna in the course of time and revive that relationship with him, and that service will become more and more spontaneous or natural, more in relationship with a most compatible relation with the Lord. To get to that point is the perfection of human life and what human life is meant for. As Prabhupada was pointing out, it's not meant for just being selfish, just being, because an animal is selfish. Certainly it serves its master, many of them, but there's that's directed, as Prabhupada was pointing out, is an extended selfishness. It's selfishness to family or society. A dog or a draft animal, they're serving their master, and that they don't have any inclination of God. For them, their master is practically God. So that's an animal's life where we are ignorant of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. It's only when the soul reaches the human form of life, can he possibly understand anything about the Supreme Personality of God? It's just not possible amongst the other species. It's not meant to be. They're meant to be in that ignorance for the fulfillment of their own selfish desires, to fly, to eat, to swim or to run, and to seek out their prey, without any criminal activity, and to be able to devour it, to keep their body and soul together. But, a human being is not meant to be completely animalistic. Although a mammal, and he certainly has needs for eating, sleeping, mating, and defending, he still has this philosophical side that can bring him to the absolute truth. This side to understand what is beyond at the time of death. This side to try to realize how to bring about an end to misery in life. This side to serve the Supreme. By the grace of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, that is being disseminated in the form of the Srimad Bhagavatam, the cream of all Vedic literatures. There are ever Vedic sources of information. Vedic civilization is so profound that there are many, many teachers in society. There are actually 6 philosophical groups, of which Veda Vyasa's Vedanta is only one, which we are a member of. And as a member of that, there are ever members who propound differently, such as the conclusions of the Advaita philosophy, propounded by Sankaracharya, which Srila Prabhupada speaks out so much in opposition, because that is the source of all Mayavada philosophy, or thinking that everything is Maya except for universal oneness in the light of the Brahma Jyoti, the all-pervading spiritual light. But besides that, there are others much more closely aligned with ourselves, such as that of Ramanuja Acharya, Vasistha Vata, Vasistha Advaita. I can't really expound upon all of them very well. It's certainly different from that of Sankaracharya. It understands that the jiva, or the multitudes of individual souls, are connected to a supreme soul who is the source of not only them, but also the source of the all-pervasive jyoti. And then there's Madhvacharya, who gives a little bit different twist on it. I call it, Dvaitavada, where there's certainly a duality between the super soul, the Paramatma, Purushottam, and the Jivatma. And then there's Nimbarkaracharya, coming in line from the original persons in the universe, the great sages, the Kumaras. And then there's Lord Shiva's representation in the form of Vishnu Swamis, propounding an understanding of Vedanta. All a little bit different, but those 4 are Vaishnavas, or devotees of Vishnu. They accept the existence of Vishnu and the existence of all the innumerable Jivatma souls, and their relationship with Vishnu as servant. And then we have Lord Chaitanya, who appeared within the Madhva Sampradaya, or the school of Madhva, and gave a slightly different twist. And by the force of the Ramanujas, was his disciplic succession after he had already left, forced our disciplic succession to give a commentary on Vedanta, to become a legitimate member of this group of followers of Vyasadeva. Lord Chaitanya did that. So there's many different ones, and even today, even very day, there's a group that has expounded Vedic knowledge in pure Sanskrit, scholarly, and has been accepted, at least by the Sankarites, followers of Sankaracharya, to be an ever proponent of Vedanta, legitimate proponent of Vedanta. They accepted their views on Vedanta as being, never school of thought that can be recognized by the followers of Vedanta. And so now we have the Swami Narayan Bhashya, propounded just recently, within the last 2 years, by one of the sannyasis within that line of disciplic succession. And they have a slightly different twist to things. So, we are fortunate because Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he took Vyasadeva's cream of all his Vedic knowledge. It's Vyasadeva who propounds Vedanta. And all these groups, they're connected to Vyasadeva through his Vedanta philosophy. But Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he never gave any different twist on Vedanta. He accepted the author's commentary is the commentary or the understanding of Vedanta. And that is the Srimad Bhagavatam. And that's quite suitable for us. But out of the need to perform priestly duties, we were forced to give our own commentary. So that was done by Baladev Vijayabhusana, who took dictation from the Govinda Vigraha, the Shri Govindaji temple, and he wrote the Govinda Bhashya. That's our commentary on Vedanta. Still, it is Srimad Bhagavatam that we accept as Vyasadeva's commentary, and it's Srimad Bhagavatam that we study to understand our relationship with Krishna and to please Krishna. And by doing so, we become Krishna conscious. And the goal of all these different groups is to become perfect or pure, to realize our absolute identity. And that is easily done through the hearing and the recitation of Srimad Bhagavatam. This was Lord Chaitanya's practice. He was so absorbed, it is absolutely amazing how he could 24/7 be completely immersed in the Bhagavatam. And Srila Prabhupada took it up as his most important service to translate it into our languages so that we fools and rascals could understand. All of us who are simply immersed in this darkness, covered by that veil of Maya, and had probably no inclination for devotional service, and no proper understanding of the absolute truth. This will be spoken about tomorrow. So many, people living outside of Vedic knowledge, but even within those who practice the teachings of the Vedas, Srila Prabhupada taught Lord Chaitanya's understanding, which goes beyond all even Vedic understanding, because it demonstrates how we are all simply the servant of the servant of the servant of the Lord of the Gopis, Sri Krishna. There is no caste other than that in the ultimate reality. I am the servant of the servant of the servants of the Lord of the Gopis, Sri Krishna. And that is our real absolute identity. Although in this world we certainly have to identify with some position in society, whether it be as a sannyasi or as a student or a householder, and then have some occupation whereby we can derive a living and devote ourselves to the service of the Lord through it. But beyond all of that is the fact of the matter that eternally I am simply the servant of the servant of the servant of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the Lord of the Gopis, Sri Krishna. It's interesting how, although one may be really the great at whatever he does, very, very spiritual things, like giving charity and reciting Vedic mantras and being able to expound upon philosophy and mysticism. Yet none of it's important without service to Krishna. This is demonstrated in Lord Chaitanya's Leela when he would perform his kirtan in the house of Srivas Thakur. No one was allowed to see him at that particular time. You had to be one of his associates to hear that kirtan and to see them dance. And if you wasn't that fortunate, you simply were excluded. So there was one pure Brahmin who wanted to see that kirtan so bad he would beg every day from Srivas Thakur to see that kirtan. That would make his life perfect. That would make his eyes perfect if he could just see the great Pandit dance. Because Lord Chaitanya was a great Pandit. Everyone knew him. There was no greater Pandit in all of Nadia, in all of India. He was famous. But now, he had changed his occupation. He was no longer a Pandit. He had become the servant of the servant of the servants of the Lord of the Gopis. And he was absorbed in this ecstasy 24/7. But he wouldn't allow others to see it. So this Brahmin, he was very, very pure. He was very austere, very pure. You could not find any sins in his body. He really wanted to see Lord Chaitanya dancing. He called him, the great Pandit. Because that's what he was previously. He was the greatest of Pandits, the greatest of scholars. So finally one day Srivas Thakur broke down and allowed him to come in and hid him in a certain place because he wasn't a member. He couldn't get in. So he had to hide him somewhere. So Lord Chaitanya began the kirtan and everyone's enjoying and chanting and dancing, and finally Lord Chaitanya, he stops and he expresses that he knows someone is in here who does not belong. And Srivas Thakur said, "Oh my Lord, there's no blasphemer here. There's only one great Brahmin. No sin resides in his body. He simply wants to see your dance." And Lord Chaitanya became so irritated. He says, "What qualification does he have to see me dance? Just because he's austere? Just because he never eats rice, he only drinks milk, he can see me dance? What austerities did the monkeys do? What austerities did the gopis do? Or the gopis? What austerities did they do to be a servant of the Lord? The demons do all kinds of austerities. And do they become my devotee? Say, take this Brahmin out of this room now. Do you think he'll ever become Krishna conscious just by being austere? And so, the Brahmin immediately got frightened and left. But he was a really good person, good Brahmin. And he never became envious or angry. And, like that's what we find nowadays. Previously, when I was like a brahmachari and a bhakta, they would always accuse most of our temple presidents of being, leaders that, if you crossed them in any way, you had to hit the road. What was that famous saying? It's my way or the highway. So nowadays, it's just the opposite. It's all the followers. Oh, dear leader, it's my way or the highway. Either I do this, or I'm out of here. There's also one comedian who said the same thing, even like 15 years ago. He says, in the political world today, the people play swallow the leader, not follow the leader. We play swallow the leader, because it's, everybody, as soon as they get, they blackmail the leader, and when the leader cannot succumb to their desire, they just drag them down. And so that's the mentality.
There was that then too, though.
Yeah, it was. That's the mentality of people in Kali Yuga. Everything instantly turns into a quarrel amongst people. As soon as you don't accept somebody's proposition, immediately a quarrel breaks out. And that's because of the atmosphere of the age. It's the age of quarrel. People don't know how to sensibly argue. They attempt, and they even consider themselves expert. But things generally devolve into simply a quarrel. And people go away bitter and upset. So this Brahmin wasn't like that. When he left, he thought, I am so fortunate. I got to see the Lord dance. Even if it was for only a moment, I saw his kirtan. And it's only because of my offenses was I rebuked. Maybe one day I'll become pure enough to be with the Lord. And because Lord Chaitanya is Paramatma, he knew the way the Brahmin was thinking. So that thinking like that qualified him. That's the way a devotee should think. That it's only because of my past activities that I have been forced to suffer like this. And not because of so-and-so, or so-and-so, or so-and-so. And so when Lord Chaitanya understood his thoughts, then he told the devotees, get that Brahmin and bring him back here. And when the Brahmin came before Lord Chaitanya put his feet on his head and said, don't try to be austere to attain perfection. Simply surrender to devotional service. Devotional service is what is important, not austerities. So that Brahmin went on to become a great devotee. He offered obeisances to all the devotees and became one of the associates of Lord Chaitanya. Another wonderful example in Lord Chaitanya's Leela is the, what do they call them? Digvijay, the great Pandit who had defeated so many other Pandits. He was so great because he had won the favor of the goddess of learning, Mother Saraswati. And whenever he went to say something, she would immediately appear on the tip of his tongue. And whatever he said was so wonderful and many times incomprehensible to the uneducated, or even to the educated, because he was such an erudite scholar, so articulate, and people were afraid to challenge him, or even to question him. And he had this pride of wanting to be known for his erudition. And so he would purposely challenge people in debates, like Lord Chaitanya used to do. It's the common nature and play of scholars to debate, like Khattriyas exhibit, their might, whether it be on the shooting range, just at a target to win a medal, or whether it becomes a challenge on a battlefield. So this Digvijay when he was finally defeated by Nimai Pandit, he was also blessed to understand that I am simply an insignificant servant of the servant of the servant of the Lord. And Lord Chaitanya similarly told him, don't try to just be a big scholar. Surrender and devote yourself to the service of the Lord. Be renounced and humble. And he renounced everything and would walk around humbly, just like Rupa Goswami, when also challenged by a person trying to be a Digvijay. He wouldn't even accept the debate. He just immediately accepted defeat. Oh no, I don't want to debate. He signed his surrender. He had to sign an armistice or something like that, some sort of thing, saying I surrender to so and so because he is one of the greatest of pandits. And when Jiva Goswami saw that Sanatana, his uncles, Sanatana and Rupa Goswami, had signed that, it infuriated him because he knew their qualification, and he just couldn't tolerate this person would claim that he had defeated them. And so he purposely accepted the debate and defeated this pandit so bad that he lost all his pride. I don't know what became of him. Lord Chaitanya, when he defeated the Digvijay, he didn't want to defeat him so badly in public that the person would lose his life. Because that's what happens to these types of people. They lose their life. And there's nothing worse than death is dishonor. So, I don't know what happened with Jiva Goswami, but Rupa Goswami became upset and ostracized the great and powerful and famous Jiva Goswami for no less than a year. He was ostracized, and it's only by the mercy of other devotees that Jiva Goswami was again accepted within their presence. The devotees, somehow ever, they appealed to Rupa and Sanatana Goswami in a way that moved their heart. Somehow ever, they were reading some slokas, and there was some take on the way the Sanskrit read. One of them made the point that if you accept all living entities, then in the Sanskrit was something like Jiva something, then what about Jiva Goswami or something like that? And so they said, all right, he can come into our presence. And Lord Chaitanya also did that with Mukunda. Mukunda's singing was so wonderful that all the Vaishnavas would go into ecstasy just hearing him sing at any time, including Lord Chaitanya. But he chastised him and banned him from his association for associating with some impersonals. And he was only able to get that association back when again he exhibited a very proudless mentality by accepting the fact that Lord Chaitanya said that it would take 1,000,000 births before he could ever come into the association. When Lord Chaitanya heard that he was joyous and was happy to come into his association again, even if it took 1,000,000 births, then Lord Chaitanya immediately left him back. So it's not by scholarship or austerity, but it's by being surrendered to the service of the Lord, and that generally means that I am surrendered to the servants of the Lord, and not only to the direct servants, but the servants of the servants of the servants of the Lord. And so consequently, we see that the emphasis is on serving the Guru. And you'll even find that in all these other Vedic Siddhantas, these philosophical conclusions of these other Vedanta schools, that service to the Guru is considered no different than service to the Supreme Personality of God. And it's by serving the Guru that one becomes Krishna conscious. So, here we see the last verse, Srila Prabhupada states in the last sentence, not the last verse, but the last sentence of the birth book. And to become God conscious, one has to hear about the all-auspicious Lord as he is described in literatures like the Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam. So Srila Prabhupada, he's so merciful that he gave us an emphasis for this hearing and chanting of the Mahamantra, the Bhagavad Gita, and the Srimad Bhagavatam. That even if we feel ourselves most disqualified, it's on the order of the spiritual master that we have to hear from these most wonderful cream of Vedic knowledge. And that way we can become very easily more and more Krishna conscious. The emphasis not being on just austerities, not just being on really good work, good accomplishment, or great ability to espouse philosophical conclusions, but simply the hearing and chanting, the hearing and recitation of Srimad Bhagavatam and Bhagavad Gita, and we can very easily make our life perfect and help others to become perfect. We have to really appreciate everything that the devotees in our International Society for Krishna Consciousness do to give spiritual life to the world, how much they offer the world in the form of teaching this Krishna consciousness, teaching this Sankirtan, and helping others to actually hear the science and become Krishna conscious. If it wasn't for them, none of us would be Krishna conscious. And that's Prabhupada. He only wanted us, as payment for that, he only wanted us to do our best to also take part in this mission and to play some role in also helping others to become Krishna conscious. Okay, so past. What time is that? Because that clock is
35.
Huh?
8:34.
Oh, so it's past the time I'm supposed to call it to go back to 8:30. What the speaker for?
Today is the 60th anniversary of Prabhupada taking sannyas. And
Prabhupada?
yeah, Prabhupada sannyas.
And it's also Bhadra Purnima, that day, that full moon day where we worship the Bhagavatam or give it as a gift or enthrone it and do puja, because there's so many benefits. There's a verse in the Bhagavatam about.
And try to give one away with that. What about Gita Jayanti? When is it this year?
That's usually in December.
Yeah, it's on Christmas Day in 2020. But I don't know what day it is. On this year. It's on the Ekadasi. So it's the Ekadasi generally closest to Christmas. 2020 it will be on Christmas Day. Oh, boy, I wish I would have known about, I didn't know it was up on us that quickly, that Bhagavatam, Bible, wouldn't,
Gita Jayanti is 7th December this year.
early, 7th.
7th December.
Okay, anything else? Shila Prabhupada.
Jai.